Breaking tonight, President Trump is pushing back against critics of his potential deal with Iran and taking a slightly different tone on the timeline for reaching an agreement. Writing on Truth Social this afternoon, quote, "If I make a deal with Iran, it will be a good and proper one, not like the one made by Obama. Nobody has seen it or knows what it is. It isn't even fully negotiated yet. So don't listen to the losers who are critical about something they know nothing about." A senior administration official confirmed to MS Now that the timing of the full agreement is uncertain, but that it would not be signed today. Just last night, Trump suggested a deal with Iran was largely negotiated, triggering backlash and skepticism from some Republicans. Here's what Senator Thom Tillis said just this morning.
We were told about 11 weeks ago by Hegseth and the Department of Defense that they had obliterated Iran's defenses, and it was just a matter of time before we had the nuclear material. Now we're talking about a posture where we may accept the nuclear material remaining in Iran. How does that make sense at all? Any agreement with Iran that isn't subject to ratification by Congress is going to be doomed to fail, just like the agreement we're trying to replace.
And joining us now to discuss is Peter Beinart, MS Now political analyst, professor, journalist, and author of the Beinart Notebook on Substack. It's great to have you back on the show, Peter.
Nice to be here.
So what does this shift in Trump's tone indicate to you? I mean, yesterday there was all this anticipation, kind of the drumbeat that there was a deal coming around the corner any minute now. And then Trump sort of releases this statement saying that we're going to take our time on this thing and, don't listen to what the losers are telling you.
It indicates that Trump is totally screwed. I mean, he has two options: to accept a really bad deal, right, in which at best he solves a problem in the state of Hormuz that didn't exist before this war started, right, after spending what might have been, some estimating, $1 trillion in this war and hurting Americans and people all over the world. Or he goes back to war, right, which the country desperately doesn't want. So what he has to do is convince people that it's actually a really good deal. And, but other people, unfortunately, live in the world of reality, right? So even some of these Republicans actually won't accept his crazy claim that this is a great deal, when obviously it's not going to be a good deal.
One of the things I was wondering about was Israel in all of this. And I wanted to read for you a part of what Benny Gantz said about the Iran deal, or this reported Iran deal that kind of emerged yesterday. He wrote on X, "It is absolutely forbidden under any circumstance to accept the ceasefire in Lebanon as part of a deal with Iran. It is impossible to accept a situation in which, just as the Lebanese public begins to internalize that Hezbollah is harming it, Israel will allow it to become Lebanon's shield." And I bring that up because Iran, from its position, has been saying any deal would incorporate the region and certainly an end to the war between Israel and Lebanon. And we've seen the president in the past, as far back as April 18th, when the first kind of ceasefire was emerging, where he called on Israel not to attack Lebanon, and yet there still has been strikes there. And now Benny Gantz, and I'm sure the Israeli prime minister is also behind the scenes sharing those same views, that Israel cannot be restricted in its ability to operate in the region. How much do you think of what Israel might do as a potential to derail what Donald Trump is trying to achieve with Iran?
I mean, the United States has the leverage over Israel to ensure that Israel complies with a ceasefire in Lebanon. The problem politically for Donald Trump is that would be costly, right? Again, he has no good options here, right? To allow Israel to basically continue the war after the U.S. to stop makes him look weak and maybe would lead the Iranians not to go for the deal at all. But putting the kind of real pressure on Israel to ensure that they wouldn't actually then hurts him with supporters of Israel in his own party. So that's the very difficult choice that he faces. But I mean, we need to remember that the United States could stop Israel if it wants to. The question is, does the United States want to?
Well, does the United States want to is an excellent question. And if you look at what the oil markets are doing, which are a pretty good indicator of the political pressures that Donald Trump faces, they are down, actually. Prices are down. West Texas Intermediate crude is about down almost 5% at $92 a barrel. Brent is down a little over 1%, 1.5% to $99 a barrel. To what extent do you think Donald Trump is feeling the heat to wrap this up and move on and settle this war because of the political blowback that can be expected from still very high oil prices translating to high gas prices?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Trump's better option politically would be to make a bad deal and just hope that he can basically change the subject, and so people are thinking about other things, and maybe some of the economic pain eases over the summer. But it is really interesting to see how on this issue of Iran and on foreign policy, you've consistently seen Republican senators be a little bit more willing to break with Trump than on anything else. I mean, they're literally more willing to break with Trump on being hawkish on Iran than they are on, like, whether we should have a free election.
Or Epstein files.
Or the Epstein files, yeah. And this is a pattern. It goes back to his first term, too. That's, for whatever reason, that's where people feel a little emboldened.
So why do you think that is?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it's partly maybe because they feel that this has always been an issue on which they feel a little bit less like they have to respond to public opinion. And I think there's especially in the Senate, I think more than in the House, there are people who've been there for a very, very long time. And they've been told for decades and decades that basically we're hewing to this ultra hawkish line on Iran. And it's a little bit hard to basically just do this complete whiplash and then basically accept a deal which is worse than Obama's deal when you claim that basically that was the worst deal in human history.
Speaking of which, why do you think Trump is so obsessed with Obama and the JCPOA? Because you would think that given the fact that he may well end up in a place that is far worse than
Right.
that deal, that maybe he would stop mentioning it all the time, just out of the hope that, like, the American public then wouldn't, like, do a side-by-side and be like, wait a minute, this
Right.
wasn't a good idea. But he keeps bringing it up.
Right. Well, Donald Trump has been obsessed with Barack Obama for a long time, I think for some reasons that we can speculate, but probably are pretty obvious. But he also has a tendency to trash all of his predecessors, right? And so I think, again, it's a fascinating moment to see a guy who fundamentally believes he doesn't have to operate in reality, basically try to actually figure out how he can deal with a situation in which reality has him cornered. And unfortunately, we're all paying the price for this, right? Because lots of people predicted exactly this, and Trump didn't listen to them.
So now with the military option off the table, it seems for now, because ultimately the U.S. wanted to go, and certainly with some hawks, for a full regime operation in Iran, that is now unrealistic given where we are in the global economy. And you keep saying the president has no options, no good options, I should say.
Yeah.
Does this mean that the United States militarily cannot resort to bombing Iran because of the fact that it's proven ineffective in trying to collapse the regime or forcing its hand?
I mean, I think that it's the politics that are constraining, right? Because, what is it, like 30% of Americans support the war. I imagine if you went back into it, the number might even sink further. Right. I would like to think that the Trump people have some sense of, like, the huge geopolitical costs. I mean, like, the geopolitical costs are just massive. I mean, just look at that trip he went to China. How much the power balance has shifted, in part because of the war. We basically have pulled our interceptors out of Asia, right? And we've also had huge damage to our military bases and sustained massive economic costs and alienated huge numbers of people around the world. Like, I would hope that also influences him.
Well, hopefully we'll see if it does.
Yeah.
Peter Beinart, thank you. Always good to see you.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it.